Hello and welcome to SW6 Essential. I am joined by Joe Sansom. Joe, we are very, very close now to that Everton game. It seems like a while since Fulham have last played.
Yeah, I was just saying to you just before we started, I'm really glad that we've had a bit of time since that West Ham game, sort of get it out of the system, and now I'm just glad that real football's back. I don't hate the international break, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. I do feel it starts to drag, especially after that weekend's over. I'm just delighted that we got Fulham back this weekend.
Yeah, it's nice. I think this international break's been a bit frustrating. Going out of the Nations League, not going to be in the semi-finals was a bit frustrating. And the game tonight against Iceland is it's a write-off. Like, it's just playing for pride, basically. Let's talk Fulham. And as you can tell by the title, Fulham Premier League rivals. What we're going to do today is kind of have an overview of the whole Premier League table and season as it is. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to look at those next four games: Everton, Leicester, Manchester City, Liverpool. Joe, I'll let you lead this because this was really interesting what you brought up yesterday when we were talking about what we should discuss. Would you say that us, with West Brom, Burnley, Sheffield United and Brighton, are the top five lead candidates for relegation? Or would you put someone else in there? Would you replace Brighton?
So me and Jack talked about this yesterday, and I said I would include those teams, and I would also bring Newcastle and Leeds into the mix. I don't think I'd include anyone else, and the reason that we started talking about this is I follow an account on Twitter, as I think many people do, called The Other 14, which has been going for a number of years, and they basically discard the top six. So City, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal and Tottenham. And they look at how players are performing in terms of the other 14. So what's interesting is that's the dynamics sort of changed over the past few years. You would say that Leicester are now up there with the best of the teams in the league. Wolves, very impressive side. You've also got Everton, who obviously were playing on Sunday. Normally, top half, used to be pushing for Europe, possibly could push for that again. And then you've got sort of teams like Palace and West Ham. You would include Newcastle, but I'll come on to Newcastle in a second, that have sort of been there for a while and are quite solid, and they're there every season quite comfortably by the end of the season. And the reason we wanted to talk about it is we want to say, is there the other 14 anymore? Or is it more like the other 5, 6, 8 teams? Because you look at a team like Southampton, they're not going down. Look at a team like Villa that we expect to go down, they're not going down. It seems that the quality of the league at the bottom is improving. And I know it doesn't seem like that with the way that we're outside the relegation zone and we've got 4 points after, 8, 9 games? I think 9, 10?
8 games.
8 games. Oh, there's 30 games to go. So obviously easily stay up by that point. But me and Jack were talking about this and we thought, I can't work out whether it is a rising quality of the bottom of the league or whether it's I don't really know how to phrase it. It's just a bit of weird situations. I followed this account for years, and it just made me think, how many teams are we actually competing with here? Because we write off the top 6 games as sort of, if we can get anything, that's great. But now you sort of write off the games against Leicester, you write off the games against Wolves. And then by the end of the season, if you're looking at these 8 teams, not including Fulham, and even that's at a push, then that's 16 games you're looking at to get points. I don't know what you think.
Well, I was going to say the point that we were talking about this on our group chat a few days ago, that back in 2011, 12, 13, those sorts of seasons, even going back to 2010, you would basically have your top 4 and then one's pushing for Europa League / 4th place Champions League. And then it'd just be a free-for-all. It'd be like the bottom 3 would go down because they're the bottom 3 with the least amount of points. But then up to about 11th or 12th, there'd be about 6 or 7 points in it.
Yeah.
And Fulham would usually comfortably finish around 12th to 13th to 14th. And I'd look at some of the the tables. In fact, let me get them up now because this is really interesting. That when we finished, say, 13th, 14th in the Premier League, I'm going to go back to the 2011-12 season. Okay, we finished 9th. That's a bad example. Okay, so look, we finished 12th on 43 points. A season where Manchester United won the league. It's the season 12-13. So Martin Yole's, the one where we beat Swansea on the last day. We finished 12th on 43 points, and Wigan went down with 36. We just finished 7 points above the relegation zone. It doesn't seem like much. And there's just nothing. So Norwich, who finished above us on 44. So there's 8 points separating 11th and 18th, which I find amazing because that could be anyone that could go down there. The point being, I think that the quality from the Championship, when we were in the Premier League last time, there were 3 really bad teams, us, Huddersfield and Cardiff. We went down with really bad points totals. Now, it's because of this. It's because of the TV money. It's because of these mid-table teams like Bournemouth back in the day. They survive and spend not loads of money, but they get a good squad together to stay up. And we're just seeing teams like Leicester, who won the league, Wolves, who came up from the Championship, Aston Villa, Southampton. They're just getting better and better. And is that going to pull them up towards 10th to 6th? And teams who come up from the Championship, like us, I can't even remember who's Leeds, West Brom, are we just not on their par because we've only had that half season in the Premier League? Whereas if we stay up and get revitalised the money, look at Villa. We talked about it last week. They stayed up last day of the season. They spent a lot of money this summer, like they did last summer. And look at them now. Ross Barkley changing the game. Jack Grealish, unbelievable player. It's an interesting point. It's one that I would want to bring to the table. Like you look at Swansea that season, they finished 9th on 46 points. It seems like teams have their spells across a couple of years and sometimes dip, like Bournemouth did. But now we're seeing teams like Villa and Southampton, they're trying to reach the levels of Leicester and what Wolves and what Everton are doing. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where this is why I think it's so important that we stay up this season, because I feel our team on paper, we said this in the last, I think it was 2 videos ago when we were talking about whether we can stay up. And I think on paper, it's a squad that definitely can. Yeah. Our backline is, in terms of quality, the best that it's been since we had Hangland and Hughes as our centre-back partnership, I think. And I think Areola is potentially, in terms of ability, the best goalkeeper we've had since Schwarzer. It's very early days, but could be. And Guisa is a player that I think could play for a top 6 club or elsewhere in Europe, a top club playing in the Europa League or Champions League. And we've just got so many quality players, which I think that we can build on if we stay up. Because if we were to go down, obviously the loanees would go. And this is what happened last time. And we managed to keep the core of the team that we wanted to keep. So we kept Brian, we kept Mitrovic, we kept Kearney. We couldn't hang on to Sessegnon, but I think that was inevitable. And I'd be interested to know now. Obviously, I don't want it to happen. I'd almost like to theoretically know who would lose if we went down again, because I really think we've got the makings of quite a good team. And as you say, with Villa staying up by the skin of their teeth, it doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you get over the line. I'd be interested to see if we can sort of solidify ourselves again, because the quality now of the league, I do feel, is better than when we were a mid-table club. I feel like there's a bigger gap between the teams at the bottom and those mid-table teams, which is sort of the point of this video. And it's more of a case, who are we competing with? So this season, we are competing with the teams at the very bottom. We're competing with Sheffield United, West Brom, Burnley, Brighton, possibly Newcastle, possibly Leeds. Leeds purely because as good as they are going forward. Yeah, they're conceding so many goals. They've conceded more goals than anyone so far.
Yeah.
And as for Newcastle, I mean, Newcastle, I think, have been quite lucky in terms of some of their results so far, in terms of the underlying numbers, very clinical finishing. You sort of feel, can they extend that to the whole of the season? We don't know. But this season we are competing with those teams at the bottom. And I want us to be able to do it. And the point of this video is the other 14 is becoming smaller and smaller in terms of who's competing with who. So it's the promoted teams against the poorest squads in the league every season. And it's very hard to pull away from that. Sheffield United last season finished, where did they finish? They finished 9th, and that was just behind Arsenal and Wolves. And now they are bottom of the Premier League, and that's just that they have invested. It's so hard to pull away into that gap.
What's so interesting now is that every week, and I don't like to be someone but I am. I don't like it, but I am someone who is like looking at everyone else's results. A lot of people are like, just focus on ourselves. If we win our games, other points. But I can't help it, especially when every game is on at the different times. So you basically have an individual hour and a half, 90 minutes of full attention on a game that could impact Fulham. So Newcastle beat Chelsea 12:30 impacts us because we want Chelsea to win to drag Newcastle back into it. Aston Villa Brighton, we want Villa to probably get a win so that Brighton again are in trouble. That's it, yeah, whatever. Manchester United versus West Brom. We're all backing Manchester United. Then we play. Then Sheffield United play West Ham, and suddenly we're like, we need West Ham to win. Leeds beat Arsenal. Suddenly we need Arsenal to win. Liverpool, let's go at the top. Burnley, Palace, we're back in Palace on Monday, and Wolverhampton is mid-table stuff. So I think there's like 6 fixtures there, including ourselves, that all have relevant to our season. And because they're all different times, we're going to be watching them and going, hopefully this goes our way. It's just unbelievable. And that kind of brings me on to my next point, that PPV has now gone. So we now know the next 2 games. BBC, the first time since last season, Man City away in the Cup. We're on the BBC. That's 12 o'clock on Sunday. And then the following Monday, we go away to the King Power Stadium to play Leicester City. A difficult game. We'll come on to that next week, of course. What was my next point, Joe? It was the next 4 games. Now, there are some rumours. Now, you said this to me this morning that Richarlison went off injured for Brazil last night.
Yeah, it's clutching at straws. We don't want anyone to be injured. It seems like it was just a knock. Right. But I saw a few Everton fans on Twitter a little bit nervous about both Richarlison and Alan in midfield. Whether there's anything to that, we don't know, and we don't wish any harm on anyone. But obviously, the weaker the squad Everton have, the more chance we have of getting a result. And we also have to remember that at the time we're filming this, England are playing tonight, and Keane and Calvert-Lewin could be involved for the England side only 3 days before we play them. Are they going to be tired out? I hope so. I really hope so.
Anguissa, who's played for Cameroon. Cabano played last night. Roda played. Mitrovic, of course, basically sent Scotland to the European Championships. They'll be facing England whenever the games get played. Another point, Everton have lost their last 3 games. They lost to United, they lost to Newcastle, they lost to Southampton. They're not on good form. They're basically Reading of the Championship, who started brilliantly and now have lost their last 3 games. It's almost weird how there's a parallel there. So how confident are you going into that game?
I'm quite nervous for this one because I do think Everton are a good side, and I saw a debate on Twitter today basically arguing, are they due a win? And I think I saw a stat saying that Ancelotti's never lost 4 league games in a row or something like that, which is never a good sign. But it's a game where I would take a point. Yeah. Similar to the West Ham game, which we nearly did. They look very shaky at the back. I think they've conceded at least 2 in every game since they played Liverpool, possibly even earlier than that. I think they conceded 2 to Brighton as well and West Brom. So it's a weird one because they are very good going forward. They haven't shown it as much in the last few games, but they've made some brilliant signings, and Calvert-Lewin's in the best form of his career so far. It's a game I'm confident we can get something out of if we play like we have been playing. But Everton will be looking to bounce back with a win, especially now Richarlison's back, who they've struggled without.
Yeah. So I was just looking at the table as you were speaking, Everton have conceded one less than us. They've conceded 14 to our 15, but they have scored 16 goals, which is one of the highest in the league. Their games have been full of goals: 5-2 against West Brom, 4-2 against Brighton. Just a lot of goals everywhere. So that is something to cling on to. The defense has been shaky, and if we get someone, I know Abu's still out; he's out for one more game, I think. Yeah, if we get someone like Lookman, who I'm sure will bounce back from the thing that happened last,
especially against Everton as well, he's probably got a bit of a point to prove.
I'm excited. I think that we're at home. We need to take the initiative to Everton, and I think that our record against Everton has not been great at the Cottage, but we did beat them last time they came here when we were already relegated. But like you said, I would definitely take a point right now, which is tricky to say because we've got 4 games coming up which we need points from, because realistically we need to get as clear as far as away from the relegation zone as possible. But can we go to Leicester and get a result? I don't know. Can we host Man City or go to Man City and get a result? No. Can we host Liverpool? Maybe. No.
This is almost the point of the video, isn't it? That a few years ago, I'm not saying you ever look at Everton at home or Leicester away as easy games, because every game in the Premier League is difficult. But I don't think we ever looked at them as absolute write-offs, like a lot of fans will be doing this season. And I think that just shows the quality in the league is growing, especially in the teams that were around mid-table, now going towards top 6. And I think, we lost against West Ham. So let's say we were to struggle against these really good teams and lose the next 4. That's 5 defeats in a row, which is very, very worrying. Regardless of your position, I feel that we've got to pull something out of the bag against Everton, because the games following that are very tough. I want to see us continue our improved defensive shape, and just in some of these games, just sit on a draw for a while and just keep it dull. There are parts of that West Ham game that were very, very dull, and we were comfortable at 0-0 for so long. I didn't really see them breaking through us, and I do feel that we can defend deep now. I do feel that we can defend it much more successfully than we could at the start of the season, where it seemed like any attack went in.
Yeah, I've got more confidence that we can hold a low block. I think even Sheffield United, who basically threw the kitchen sink at us in their first half, West Ham did it in the first 5 minutes against us. So teams will basically start by after them, try and unnerve them. But if we hold strong first 10-15 and grow into the game, I'm more than confident we can get something from the game. One thing I will say is, apart from this Everton game, I think I'm right in saying that all 3 of our next games, Leicester, Manchester City, Liverpool, will all be coming off a European midweek. Now, Leicester play Thursday, and we then play them Monday. They've got an extra day to recover. And then I think Liverpool, Man City will both be in the Champions League. Not to even start mentioning the injury concerns that Liverpool have. I don't think it will be as bad as by the time we play them, with contracting COVID-19. We obviously hope we recover as quickly as possible. But there is a concerning amount of injuries at Liverpool. I don't think Fulham should be talking about this, licking their lips, but I think maybe Leicester will be, given that they're playing them on Saturday, and that Leicester. Joe, this has been like a really different video, because we kind of just talked about loads of different things at once. But ultimately, let's go back to Fulham's Premier League rivals, and I'm going to ask you the question here. And I was going to say something earlier, actually. The fact that if we stay up, we then have 3 teams coming up from the Premier League, from the Championship. Let's say I'm going to go Norwich, Watford, and I'll go Bournemouth again. I think maybe Bournemouth might go up. Would we be then in the bottom 3 favourites to then go back down again, or do you think we would be stronger than everyone else because we had that season, we've had the time to stay up, we've had the money?
Well, I think unless anyone walked the league sort of in a nice style like Leeds did. I know they didn't walk the league, but they did an impressive style that sort of got everyone looking at them a bit differently when they got promoted, or really splashes out in the transfer market. Then I instantly think the bottom three that come up are the three favourites to go down, and we should be instantly. Sorry.
No, so I was just saying, not to mention, let's say the three that go down right now are the three in the relegation space. So West Brom, Burnley, and Sheffield United will go down. Would then you say that Brighton, Leeds, Fulham, Newcastle, Palace, West Ham, they'll all be in the mix as well?
Yeah, and also we'll then have an extra year, hopefully converting some of the loans to permanent deals, hopefully recruiting more players now that we are. Because once you stay up, obviously you're still, let's say we finish 17th or something like that, and we just about survived. Which, by the way, I would absolutely snap your hand off for. Like, this is not us getting ahead of ourselves or anything. It's going to be tough to stay up, but it's just if we did it. We then got a stadium in London, which will hopefully be nearly finished or finished. Looks amazing so far. We're a Premier League team that has stayed up. We're not this yo-yo team that is going to go straight back down, that people don't want to join. I'm sure we can attract players, especially under a manager in Parker that seems to have quite a good record in terms of attracting players. Every player that's joined has said that he's had a talk to them and almost convinced them himself. And I'd be really interested to see what we did in the transfer market, but it's all about staying up this season, and then we can just take it as it comes. But like you, I'm very much, Jack, every single game that could possibly influence Fulham, I'm watching it and cheering on that team. And it feels weird. It's very early, of course. We know that. We know that, for example, if we were to beat Everton and, I don't know, West Brom were to lose at Man United, we're not suddenly staying up. But every single one of these games will matter at the end of the season. And the longer the three teams below us go without a win, I think the better it is for us.
That's what I was just about to say. All three teams in the relegation zone have yet to win a game. Burnley have played 7, all the rest have played 8. It's extraordinary how you can go games without a win. I mean, it's not extraordinary. It's not unheard of, but it will unnerve them. Thank God we got that win against West Brom, one of our rivals. It's weird because when you're in the Championship, you'll have let's say we're going for a promotion, you'll have your promotion rivals playing each other and other teams every week, but you're not as like, oh my God, this team needs to win, because with the Championship, kind of, you'll have a game where you feel as though you might get a result as well. So even if you get a result and all the other teams win as well, you're like, well, at least we stay at least ahead of the grain, still the same par as you. Joe, my last question to you before we leave, who's going down? And I know that's a question because you take away bias based on what you've seen so far this season and the projection of where you think the season can go. Think about Fulham's squad. Think about everyone else's squad. Who's going down?
Okay, so if any other fans see this, they're probably going to accuse me of bias. But from purely what I've seen so far, I would put. I'm a bit unsure on the order, but my bottom three would be the current bottom three.
Wow.
My reasoning for that is that Sheffield United, it must be said, have had a horrible run of fixtures, other than playing us so far. Their attack seems to me a little bit like a Championship standard attack, and with O'Connell out, they've lost a bit of the threat that they did have from the wing backs because Edna Stevens has had to fill in at left centre back, and Max Lowe hasn't really been providing as much of the crossing ability that they relied on last season. So with McBurney and Sharp and Brewster so far hasn't really kicked off yet. I just don't think they have the firepower. I would also say Burnley for a similar reason. Tarkowski's unsettled. Will he leave in January? We don't know. They're not firing all cylinders yet at all, and they have played some of the teams around them. They have played Brighton. They have played West Brom. They're playing Palace, which is a game where normally you'd expect a typical Burnley performance, a 1-0 win at home to Palace. So we'll see if they can sort of turn back the clock. And my last team would be West Brom, and the reason for that is they looked improved in that game. I watched the game that they played against Tottenham compared to the game against us, but it's the small mistakes they're making. I don't think they have the quality in the same ways we do in terms of, I'm not saying we're a quality Premier League team, but it seems to me that they need a lot of chances to score, goals, and they are conceding a lot of goals as well. That hasn't stopped. And even in that game where it's the best they've played all season against Tottenham, they still could have conceded a few. Johnston made some great saves. I think it was Lo Celso missed an open goal. It looks a lot better than it actually was, I think. So my 3 to go down would be them, and I think that us, Newcastle and Leeds will be in the mix as well. My reasoning for putting those 3 at the bottom so far is the quality of the squad on paper and the way we've played so far. Because so far, even though I'm biased, I think we should have more points than we do. And I do believe, like I know you do, Jack, that these things sort of even their way out over the season. And so what would your 3 be?
I'd have to, and before, I know this will get clipped and played at the end of the season, if it doesn't go well, I have to agree with you. With all the reasons of which you've said, I'm just going to mirror them. Because of VAR has a major factor to play in relegation and non-relegation. You saw it last season with Villa's ghost goal. If that goes in and it's given, Villa go down. And now look, it's so hard to be like, they're going down, because you just never know. We might beat Man City and Liverpool based off VAR and an offside that, Raheem Sterling's offside in the last minute of the game to win the game for City. It gets chalked off and Fulham get a 0-0 draw or 1-1 draw. I have no idea what's going to happen. But based on the way we play, the organisation we're starting to get in midfield and defence, I literally keep thinking about Andrews and the way he holds the ball. If he actually just wakes up and tracks his man and we don't concede that goal against West Ham, it's happy days. I just have a feeling that we're going to improve. And I think that Leeds won't be in as much trouble as we make out. I think it will be Newcastle. I think they're likely to run out and they will be near 17th, 16th. I think we'll finish 17th, but I think we'll be much. I don't know. I genuinely don't know, but I think we will finish.
Well, we should say this is a really crazy season as well, and obviously predicting this early, we know that it's unlikely to end like this because Palace a couple of years ago, I think it was when they had Frank de Boer and then Hodgson took over, they had the exact same record as Sheffield United, other than I think they hadn't drawn a game yet. I think Sheffield United are slightly ahead of them in terms of they've actually drawn a game so far. They'd lost their first 7. They hadn't scored a goal either, and then they ended up finishing mid-table. weren't even close to relegation. So we could look like idiots at the end of the season. But on the basis of what we've seen so far, if anyone's going to suddenly jump to mid-table, I think it could be us as much as it could be anyone, because I think we've deserved points at some good sides. I think we deserved a point at Leeds. I think we deserved a point at Wolves. I think we deserved a point at West Ham. And if we look at that, then we're suddenly above Brighton on 7 points. And it's just, you just don't know what could happen if we were to get those points. Weird season.
Mate, it's unbelievable. And make no illusions. We are not saying that Fulham have a God-given right to get points and finish mid-table to 17th. We are under no illusions that this is going to be the hardest spell of the season so far coming up with these 4 games. But I have to stay positive. You have to stay positive in these situations. We're outside the relegation zone now, and I really hope there might be times in and out. I really hope that we're above the dotted line come May, whatever the date is, after the 38 games. And we'll leave it there because we have been rattling on for almost half an hour. I think it's been a fascinating video because there's been so much to dissect about this weird and wonderful Premier League season. And Joe, bring on Sunday. I know Dom's got a preview coming out tomorrow, so we're not going to touch on it too much. We've talked about the injuries, but I will ask for your score prediction.
I feel like I always say this score, but I am going to go for a 1-1 draw. And I hope that we do get something at home. I know that it's really boring, and everyone watching this must be like, oh, I don't want to hear his prediction. He always says 1-1. But I think that a draw would be a good result, and I would be over the moon, to be honest with you, especially with the tough games you've got coming up. What about you?
I texted this in the group chat. I said 1-0 Fulham, Lookman to score, but I also think it could be 1-0 to Everton. I think it's either 1-0 either way. Okay. And I think we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for watching. Either you have enjoyed it, please share with your pals, share on Twitter, on socials, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. We'll be back next week to talk a little bit about the Everton game, and we'll have a new topic to discuss. I'm sure there'll be something to talk about. There always is with the Premier League this season. And then we go to Leicester. I feel like I need to go after that, because that was quite a draining, quite hard-fought video where we have to think about things that are going to happen in May when it's November. So, Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks. And if you do have any ideas of topics to talk about, then please do leave them in the comments as well.
Yeah, we would love some suggestions. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the game on Sunday. It's live on the BBC, so the whole nation will be watching the actual Fulham. Have a good week and weekend, rest of the week, and come on Fulham.